Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to It's a Shaw Thing. I'm your host, Rob Shaw. We're talking fantasy football, and things are getting a little dicey now. We've got bye weeks to deal with, which means a couple of more difficult decisions needed by fantasy managers. Well, fortunately for you, we have the fantasy tailgate here at opensports.com. I'm going to run through every single game in the NFL this weekend and discuss the fantasy significance. We're going to start off with Atlanta going against Carolina. It's very obvious here what to expect. Atlanta is a team that moves the ball on the ground. They've got a rookie quarterback. Maybe Roddy White's a decent start, but other than him, definitely Michael Turner deserves to be out there. And if you need to, Jarius Norwood is also a decent option. As far as Carolina, the opposite. A split backfield actually hurts that team. D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart are both compromised. Steve Smith is back once again, and also DJ Hackett, a decent option. I'd probably just go with Jake Delhomme and Smith and call it a day. Next up, Cleveland against Cincinnati. There was once a time when both of these teams could put up 50-plus points. Those days seems to have passed, but let's hope for a renaissance. I'll tell you one thing, if Derek Anderson does not perform well on this one, he loses his starting gig, so get ready to pick up Brady Quinn. As far as that team, go with the usual suspects. As far as Cincinnati, I'll tell you what, Carson Palmer played pretty well this past weekend. Chris Perry is also a name to know. I think that's a guy you should and must start. TJ Ushmanzada had a very nice week. If you have Chad Johnson, you probably don't have many better options. You might want to throw him in there and hope that he finally breaks out this season. All right, next up, Houston against Jacksonville. People always like Jacksonville's defense, but they're actually better up front, which is bad news for rookie Steve Slayton on Houston at running back. On the other hand, the passing attack should be good. Don't forget, Kevin Walter, last time he played that team, 12 receptions, 160 yards. It's ridiculous numbers. Of course, it wasn't with Matt Schaub at quarterback, though, so that is a concern. Let's hope that Schaub could finally bounce out of that rut this year with a big performance against them. Andre Johnson's a must start. Owen Daniels, not a bad start either. As far as Jacksonville, Mojo had a nice weekend this past weekend. Fred Taylor, not the worst of options. As far as the passing attack, I think you might want to stay away from that for now. All right, next up, how about a little Denver against Kansas City? This is two very different teams. Denver likes to go to the air. Jake Cutler, Eddie Royal, Brandon Marshall, even Tony Scheffler, all very, very good starts. As far as KC, one-dimensional team, Larry Johnson, and that's pretty much it. Of course, the great concern with him is that this game could get out of hand quick, and if that's the case, Johnson won't get many carries. So he's one of those guys, you probably will start him because you don't have much better, but at the same time, it's a little bit of a risky move. All right, next up, San Francisco against New Orleans. My friends, this should be a fantasy shootout, a fantasy bonanza. I like this one. JT O'Sullivan, I'm very high on him, been high on him all throughout the entire season so far. Frank Gore is a great player. I still am going to stay high on Brian Johnson. Of course, he does have an injury report on him this week, so make sure he is going to play in this one, but I think he'll be all right. And then, of course, Isaac Bruce is another decent option there. As far as the other side of that, you have to like New Orleans these days, even with Marcus Colston, Jeremy Shockey out. Drew Brees maintains great value. Reggie Bush, in fact, might be at an all-time peak right now. He's a great start. The other guys now it gets a little risky because you just don't know what to expect. It could be Devery Henderson, it could be Lance Moore, David Patton, Bobby Meacham. You just don't know. And on that note, I'd probably rest them all. But obviously, you got to love what you got out of Drew Brees so far this season. All right, another shootout potential here. How about Arizona going against the New York Jets? Brett Favre a little banged up, but he claims to be healthy. Perhaps once again, he'll rely on the pass. Thomas Jones had a bad week last week. That's more because they had to ditch their plan, their game plan, because they were playing catch-up. But I do expect them to have a pretty good week this week. As far as Arizona, Kurt Warner's a must-start. Larry Fitzgerald a must-start. Anquan Bolden a must-start. Pretty much it. Edgerrin James has yet to get a touchdown. There's rumors that Hightower might get even more carries in the future. But that being said, James is still having a pretty decent season as far as yardage goes, so I probably would want to start him. Next up, Green Bay against Tampa Bay. I don't know. Is that another shootout? Tampa Bay threw for over 400 yards this past weekend. What a day from Greasy, though he did have a couple of interceptions. I'd probably start Antonio Bryan. I'm pretty happy with what I saw from him. As far as the running attack, I don't know what happened to Ernest Graham, but it's not a good situation for now. For Green Bay, Ryan Grant finally is healthy. He's a good start, as is Greg Jennings. Donald Shriver you could throw out there. Donald Lee you could throw out there. Definitely start Aaron Rodgers. He's been a very pleasant surprise so far. All right, keep it moving. Minnesota going against Tennessee, two teams that can move the ball on the ground, and that's exactly what I do with Minnesota. Only person I would start would be Adrian Peterson. As far as Tennessee, if Justin Gage is healthy, he's a pretty good wideout. I'd consider starting him. He didn't play last weekend. And then on the ground, it's tough, but probably Chris Johnson and Lendell White both deserve to play, so you can put both of them in your fantasy lineup. All right, how about San Diego against Oakland? LT loves to feast on Oakland. He should be a great start in this one. Philip Rivers having an unbelievable season. He's worth starting. Chris Chambers having a nice season. Antonio Gates are all worth starting. As far as Oakland goes, it gets a little difficult here, but Michael Bush had some pretty good numbers this past week and really 2 weeks in a row. I'd consider starting him as well as Darren McFadden. All right, next up, Buffalo against St. Louis. Buffalo has a very nice offense these days. They have a very good team these days. I would start Trent Edwards. I would start their defense. As far as their passing game, Lee Evans, remember Roscoe Parrish is out, wouldn't start him. As far as St. Louis goes, Steven Jackson, and that's it. I do not like the idea of them going to Trent Green. I don't see any way that this helps Torrey Holt. I might get surprised this weekend. They are playing at home, but I personally would be a little more conservative there. All right, next up, we're talking Washington against Dallas. Last time Washington played against a big beast in the NFC East, they got slaughtered by the New York Giants. Jason Campbell didn't look like he belonged in the NFL. So he's a little risky. At the same time, though, Dallas' defense is a little weaker, especially in the secondary, compared to the Giants, even though they might have some pretty big names. Or maybe it's the fact they don't put much pressure up front. Whatever it is, I do expect Campbell to be able to get involved in a decent shootout. Santana Moss has scored in every game so far. Clinton Portis, one of the elite running backs, would start off those guys for Dallas. The usual suspects are all among the elite in the NFL. All right, next up, Philadelphia going against Chicago. Two very good defenses going at it. That being said, I don't expect Kyle Orton repeated success. Only one on the Bears that start, Matt Forte, very talented rookie running back for Philadelphia. Deshaun Jackson wasn't that great this past weekend, but I would still start him. Also, Donovan McNabb's a good start. Check the injury report on Westbrook. There's a chance he might be out in this one, and if that's the case, Buckhalter suddenly sustained some pretty good fantasy value. Next up, and the final game, Baltimore going against Pittsburgh. Two very good defenses going at it. For Pittsburgh, remember, Willie Parker's out for a couple of weeks with a high knee sprain. That being said, that's a team that might want to push the ball in the air. Now, is that good news? I'm not sure. Baltimore's gone against two teams known for the pass, and they've dominated both of them defensively. I'm talking about Cleveland and Cincinnati. So that being said, might be a little risky with Big Ben. I mean, he's an obvious start, as is Hines Ward's Antonio Holmes, but there is a chance he might really get to feast, but there's also that chance of famine because of the opposing defense. As far as Baltimore goes, you know, Laron McClain had a fantastic weekend this past week, and really 2 weekends in a row, but there's a lot of questions. How many times will Wilson McGahee get the ball? Plus, apparently all those eye injuries from the past weekend could be an issue as well. Ray Rice at this point, no fantasy value, and I wouldn't trust Joe Flacco going on the road in this contest, so I would certainly keep him on the bench. Well, my friends, that is your fantasy tailgate. It can only be found right here at opensports.com. Hope you have a good weekend. Until Monday, hey, best of luck.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy at opensports.com.